think, oh, she has replied in the chat. Yes. Would you like to give a quick summary, Memuna? Okay, it's fine. Background disturbances, it's fine. It's totally understandable because we are all at home. So don't worry about that. If it's unbearable, I'll tell you. So you can start. Let's see if it's bearable. I think if you can hear us, we will be able to hear you. And it's completely understandable. It's not an issue. So would you like to do it, Memuna? We are waiting for you. Come on, try if you want. No, I think. Okay, well, in that case, anyone else? Saifullah? No. Okay. Reem? No one wants to give a summary. Ellen? Ellen, would you like to give a summary?
So I wasn't like listening to the class like at the last half.
It's okay. It's okay. So you can start. Like, okay, where you find a difficulty, you can just ask me, and I'll take over from there.
Okay, so then you were talking about we were starting about how there are different types of ecosystems, and then
Mhm.
you're talking about the energy levels in the different tropic levels, like
Yeah.
how the sun absorbs 1%. I mean, how the plants absorb 1% of the sun, and in each topic level, it's a transfer of 10% energy,
Correct.
and then you're talking about how that effort chain doesn't just follow a strict order and can be effort web from going from any order. Like
Mm.
a tertiary consumer can just directly consume on a primary producer and directly absorb 1,000 joules, or could also consume a secondary consumer and just take like 1 joule. And you're talking
Yeah.
about
So
the different types of, I think, humification. Yeah, I wasn't listening to that last part.
okay. So before that, we also talked about the production, how to actually distinguish between gross
Yes, so
production.
GPP would be the entire production, and NPP
Mm.
would be GPP minus the respiratory losses.
Yes,
Um,
perfect. So yeah, correct. So net primary production is gross minus the respiratory losses. Okay, and I told you that secondary production is simply the production that is production of new organic matter that is carried out by the consumers after they feed on the uh, NPP. So NPP is basically what is available for the primary and secondary consumers. Okay, even tertiary consumers. Now, then we talked about decomposition. So if you're not very sure about this part, right? So let me
yes,
take
so I
this.
left in this part.
Okay. So decomposition in ecosystem is important because uh, we know that resources are not unlimited. Okay, even if they seem like they are not, because we cannot just keep producing new things from the raw material and keep discarding the finished or the used up or the waste product. We have to break that waste product down and bring it back as a nutrient to the ecosystem. So decomposition becomes very important if we have to keep this chain or this cycle going on. So breaking down of complex organic matter into simpler inorganic matter is called decomposition, and that's done by organisms which are called decomposers, or specifically detritivorous. So detritivorous decompose the organic detritus. Detritus is remains of animals and plants and plus their fecal matter. Okay. Now, how does this happen? Examples of some detritivorous organisms are earthworm, fungi, and at a very fundamental level, bacteria. And how does it happen? So there can be three different ways, and they may or may not be in sequence. It's not important that they always follow the same sequence. They can be happening simultaneously on a detritus also. But one way is fragmentation, which is the physical breakdown of the detritus into smaller particles. This is done by earthworm very effectively in the soil. So earthworm eat soil and grinds and churns it and digests it and break it down into smaller particles. And then on that same particle, leaching can happen. So leaching is when smaller detritus or even bigger detritus, which has water soluble inorganic nutrient present in it. So when this gets dissolved in water and percolates inside the deeper soil layers, that's called leaching of the detritus. Okay. And third is enzymatic catabolism. So through enzymatic catabolism simply means lower organisms like bacteria and fungi, they can release some enzymes that degrade this dead and decaying matter, because fungi we know are called saprophytes. They survive on dead and decaying matter. So bacteria and fungi together or separately, there are many other organisms as well. Bacteria can also be autotrophic. So whenever we are studying them in context of decomposers, we have to just make sure that we are talking about heterotrophic bacteria. Okay. So they degrade the detritus into inorganic compounds through enzyme action, not by physical breaking or by leaching, but by biochemical interaction. The last thing we studied in the last class was humification of soil. So for that, we defined first what is humus. So humus is a amorphous, dark colored and highly resistant compound, which is highly resistant to bacterial degradation. So these compounds in nature, they were detritus at one time, but they got accumulated, and due to many abiotic factors, which pressure is one of it, temperature is one of it, they become less soluble and they undergo very slow decomposition. Okay. And this has a benefit. So because they undergo very slow decomposition, they act as a reservoir of nutrients in soil. So if everything dissolves very fast in the soil, it will also percolate very fast in the soil. And soil, the upper layers of the soil will lose nutrient very fast and will become infertile. But here adding humus to the soil makes the soil more fertile, because humus keeps adding nutrients slowly into the soil. Okay, like a slow punch. So this slowly addition of inorganic substances, which are known as minerals, okay, to the soil by certain microbes. So these microbes act on humus in a very long run, not very fast. And this process where mineral is added to the soil is called mineralization of soil. So humification and mineralization goes hand in hand. Okay, one is the reason for the other. Make sense, people? Any doubts still here?
No, sir.
No doubts. Okay. So Today, we'll begin with the concept of energy flow in ecosystem. So what do I mean by energy flow? We have already discussed a part of it as introduction. So energy flow simply means that biomass ultimately has to get converted into energy so that living organisms can function. We eat food not just because we just want the weight of the food for the sheer weight. It's also because we have to break down that organic food to make inorganic substances plus energy. That is mostly heat energy in living systems, but some organisms also radiate it out as light energy. So organisms that do bioluminescence, they make proteins that emit out light energy, like your fireflies, right? But mostly it's heat energy because heat is required in every chemical reaction inside the cell for every pathway. So this energy flow is basically happening from the primary producers. Okay, we will not take into consideration sun here because we are talking about energy flow in the ecosystem. So sun is out of the ecosystem. It gives the energy to the primary producers, but everything after that comes into this ecological energy flow system. Okay, now we know that sun is the only source of energy for all the ecosystems, and we also know that there are regions on earth where sunlight does not reaches, for example deep sea or the sea bed. What do you think is the source of energy there? Where sunlight does not reaches. The source of energy there is deep sea vents, which is called hydrothermal vents. Okay, so crust has these faults or gaps, or they are called fissures in the surface, through which heat constantly from the core keeps coming out. And if it's coming out through a fissure or a vent in the ocean bed, it will heat up the water. So water gets heated up constantly by these deep sea vents, and that is the source of energy in places where sunlight cannot reach. Okay. Okay, apart from that, there is another thing which is known as PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. Okay, so what is PAR? Write down. Out of the total solar radiation that falls on the surface of the earth, out of the total solar radiation that falls on the surface of earth, only less than 50%, less than 50% act as photosynthetically active radiation. Photosynthetically active radiation, also known as PAR. Okay, so it's not like if in one region you have too much of sunlight, very high intense sunlight, the flora and fauna will flourish there too much. That's not true. In fact, if you remember in your class 11th, in respiration, no, in photosynthesis in higher plants, this chapter, you saw a correlation between intensity of light and photosynthesis. So above one point of intensity, light starts affecting photosynthesis negatively. Remember that, people? And why does that happen? Because too much of intense light will start breaking down the photosynthetic center, the chlorophyll center in the mesophyll cells. Okay, because it's a protein. So there is a range in which different chlorophylls, A, B, chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, and also xanthophylls, they absorb. Okay, they have different range. They don't absorb in the whole spectra. Okay, so that's called PAR, and that's why that is just less than 50%. And as we know, the flow of, there are two kind of food chains. So energy flow happens through food chains. Energy flow occurs through food chain. Now there are two types of food chain that we study. Basically, one type is called the grazing food chain, and the grazing food chain is a very simple model, which just says, which talks about a unidirectional flow of energy. Okay, so first let's talk about that, then we will build on this model and make it more complex. So grazing food chain, what is it? It just simply says that to begin with, you have plants or the primary producers. Primary producers also include algae and others, but we here are including just plants. And even in plants, there are grass, which comes at the very bottom, because most of the grazing cattle graze grasses. So plants give this to cattle or herbivores energy, which are primary consumers. Okay, and from herbivores it goes to carnivores, the simplistic one, which is a secondary consumer. Is that clear, people? In this, we are assuming that this unidirectional flow of energy is because things cannot come back to plants, but that does not happen. So the more realistic model in nature is where it goes to carnivores, and from carnivores it can come back to plants. And how does this happen? Because we have something known as, what do we have? This is called saprotrophs. Saprotrophs are organisms that feed on dead and decaying matter and bring back things as a nutrient to plant. So if you add saprotroph in the grazing food chain model, okay, also let's call it decomposers. And this cycle where you start, which I'm denoting by black, will be called a detritus food chain. Detritus food chain. Is it clear, everyone? The blue one is grazing food chain and the black one shown is detritus food chain. Okay. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there's the two kind of food chains that we have to keep in mind. Now here comes two concepts. One is called food web, another is trophic level. So what do we mean by food web? So food web is simply, as I told you, there are more than one kind of food chain, or even in grazing food chain, there can be one food chain which is running from grass to tigers, one food chain running from a tree to, let's say, wolves, something. So there will be many food chains, and all these food chains will be interacting with each other, because animals in nature have a gradient of diet. It's not like one animal will eat just one grass. It can eat one type of grass, it can eat the other type as well, it can also eat some plants, right? And it's also not like one type of herbivore will be predated and killed by just one type of carnivore, correct? Make sense, people?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So food chain is, food web is a interconnection of or interaction of multiple food chains. So write down. First, write down this point before writing out food chain, that grazing food chains in nature, because there can be multiple grazing food chains in nature, also are interacting and connecting with detritus food chain at various levels. Grazing food chains in nature are also interacting and connecting with detritus food chain at various levels. Now let's define food web. Write down. In nature or in ecosystems, the natural interconnections of multiple food chains of multiple food chains is called food web. Okay, ecosystem food web. And what is the trophic level? Write down. Trophic level. Write down based on the source of nutrition. Based on the source of nutrition, which means what do they eat and who do they get eaten by. This is what I mean. So based on the source of nutrition, organisms in an ecosystem occupy different place, different place in the food chain. In their food chains, different place in their food chains, known as their trophic levels. Okay, is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So if you understood these two concepts, then you will also appreciate that energy or amount of energy as it goes up the trophic level. In language of trophic level, I'm saying the same thing again. as we go up the trophic level, because we can make a trophic pyramid where the producers will be at the base because they will be highest in number and also in biomass and also will produce energy. So as we go up the trophic level, the energy will decrease, amount of energy will decrease or increase. As we go from producers to consumers, the amount of energy will decrease or increase as we go up the trophic level. Sorry, come again. I could not understand. Sorry, again, I could not understand, Wafia.
Decrease.
Decrease. Yes, that's correct. It decreases. Okay. So in terms of trophic level. Now there's something called standing crop. Any idea? What do we mean by standing crop? So in the last chapter, we studied a concept called carrying capacity, which was the maximum biomass that can be sustained. And standing crop is the total biomass at every trophic level. Okay, so write down. Let's define all these concepts because they are important to for the further discussion. So standing crop, it's a term, it's not just for crops. Okay, you can say that that's standing crop for ants in an ecosystem. So that is the biomass of all the ants combined in that ecosystem. So write down. It is the total biomass of living material at each trophic level, so total biomass of living component at each trophic level at a particular time, because that is prone to be changing at a particular time. Okay. These three concepts are clear. Shall we now go to, let's make some pyramids and analyze it for our own. So now let's go to ecological understanding on this basis. Ecological pyramids. So what do we mean by ecological pyramids? Again, just like we did for age distribution. Remember, we made a pyramid form of representation for a population size, right? Whether it will expand or decline or stay stable. We do the same things here. So if we first talk about biomass, okay, number or biomass. So how will the pyramid for a biomass look like in an ecosystem? It will look something like this. So at the very bottom, you will have, let's say, this much amount of primary producers, plants. Okay. And at the next bottom, which is the primary consumers, they will be less in number. Okay, so a large amount of primary producers can only sustain a less amount of primary consumers. Even on top of that, if you talk about secondary consumers, they will be even less. Secondary consumers. And at the very top, when we talk about tertiary consumers, their numbers have to be even less. So it goes something like this. There's always fold. Let's say there are 10 tertiary consumers to begin with. So at the next trophic level, there will be more than 10 folds. Sorry, more than 1 lakh fold. So if you start with 10, it will be around 10 lakh secondary consumers that can sustain. And then it increases, just doubles up. Okay, so primary consumers are around 20 lakh. This is just an estimate. And then it kind of again goes very up, like from 20 lakh, it's like more than 100. This it again increases many folds. So you can see that the increase is multi-fold. It's not just a linear increase. Okay, that's why the pyramid also doesn't look very linear. It's a very steep. So this kind of pyramid will work for biomass. It will also be the same for the numbers. If you start counting the numbers of individuals at every level, you will get a similar pyramid. Okay, you will also get the same kind of pyramid because all these are associated. Okay, for energy flow. So remember, for these 3 factors, number of individuals, which is sometimes very difficult to or impossible to count, or energy flow, or biomass at different trophic levels. So all these are trophic levels. The pyramid will look something like this. Is that clear, everyone? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Now, there is one exception though in ecological pyramids which you have to study. There is one pyramid. There is one instance where we see that when from lower trophic level, as we go to higher trophic level, it should be upright or erect pyramid, but here it is an inverted pyramid. Okay, so only at one place we find an inverted pyramid of biomass. At every other ecosystem or every example you will take, most of them, there will be upright pyramid of biomass, but at one point we find that and that happens in case of aquatic system where there is a small amount of zooplanktons, okay, which are the primary producers here, and this is zooplanktons, this example. So small amount of zooplanktons can sustain a large number of primary consumers, which are, sorry, I'm so sorry, small amount of phytoplanktons, plants like these are simple unicellular organisms which are like, they sustain more number of zooplanktons by biomass. Okay, and if you go above, you will see by biomass and go to the third level, which is your secondary consumers, which let's say fishes. So their biomass will be more. So this is the only case where an inverted pyramid of biomass is there. Is it clear, everyone? Please note this down as a star mark. Inverted pyramid of biomass, write down, is observed in aquatic food chain, is observed in aquatic food chain where small biomass of phytoplanktons can sustain.
So you can repeat from food chain.
Food chain, in aquatic food chain where small biomass of phytoplanktons, where small biomass of phytoplanktons can sustain a larger biomass of zooplanktons. Which can go on to sustain an even larger biomass of fish or secondary consumers. So pay extra attention to this kind of exceptions because these are the ones where they can ask tricky questions. Okay, because they don't follow the rule quite. But what do you think now? If the biomass pyramid is inverted in this case, how will the energy pyramid look like? The energy flow pyramid. Will it also be inverted or will it be upright? Looking at the biomass pyramid, what can you predict for a energy flow pyramid? People, what do you expect? Will the energy flow pyramid also be inverted or it will be upright? Okay, so no one is interested in discussing. It's okay. So the energy pyramid can never be inverted in any system. Even if the biomass pyramid is inverted, it simply means that in small amount of mass, the lower trophic level is able to provide lots of energy to the higher trophic level. But a trophic level pyramid can never be inverted because this rule that always there will be some energy loss in the form of respiration, correct? Or just by radiating heat from the body to maintain the body temperature, that will always be there. So only higher energies can exist at lower food chain, lower trophic levels. As you go up the trophic level, each lower trophic level will provide energy to the upper trophic level after some loss. So it will always decrease as you go up. Make sense, people?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. Very well. So write down, even in aquatic food chain where inverted pyramid of biomass is observed, even in aquatic food chains where inverted pyramid of biomass is observed. The pyramid for energy will still be upright. The pyramid for energy flow will still be upright, as it can never be inverted. As it can never be inverted. Okay. Is that clear, people?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's about the ecological pyramids. And from ecological pyramids, now let me talk about ecological
Sir, can you show the
succession.
first pyramid?
Yes, please. Okay, so let's take some time and draw this and write biomass, number of individual energy flow all. Okay, I'm giving you one. Please open NCRT, and in your NCRT there will be these pyramid made individually. I want you to just look at the difference in the markings like x-axis, y-axis of all the three: biomass, number of individual, and energy flow pyramid that looks like this. So here I have given the values for just the number for the biomass. Look what is the difference in energy ones, and let me know when you are done here, because till now whatever you have studied, we'll use it as a concept in ecological succession and nutrient cycling also. So let me know when you're done drawing and looking at the NCRT, and we'll move forward. Those who cannot speak, please write in the chat. Done, everyone? No one has. Are you still doing? Please let me know. I'm waiting, people.
So what should we do exactly here?
So you have to look at these pyramids. Do you agree that when I said that these three pyramids are looks the same? There are three pyramids. in your text? Are there pyramids in your textbook? Did you find that?
Yes, sir.
Ecological pyramids, not for the age distribution. Can you see there for different pyramids for number, biomass, and for energy?
Yes.
Now, what does the axis tells you about? In one, it will be number where you count. In the other, it will be the dry weight or biomass, something like that will be written. And in other, it will be the energy in either in terms of kilocalories or joules. Just pay attention to their numbers as they go up the trophic level. You will realize that there is multifold change when these pyramids go from lower level to higher level. Can you appreciate that difference? Please ask if you have any questions. Yes, so Minashi is correct. It's number of individuals, dry weight, and for energy it's not energy, it's joules or kilocalorie. That's the unit of energy, right? So that's how you. So if they show you a pyramid where nothing is mentioned, but you just look at the x-axis, y-axis, and you see that there is numbers written or unit is kg per meter square or kilocalories or joules, you will understand what this pyramid is talking about, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, no? Yeah. And if they change the bar size, length, etc., you will be able to tell that whether this kind of pyramid is possible or not. So for a let's say for a biomass pyramid, it is possible to have a biomass pyramid which does not look like a erect pyramid, where the lower is always bigger than the next trophic level. It can also be equal sometimes. It can also be inverted, as I told you, in a aquatic system. But if they are showing this kind for energy, or if they're asking for which of the following this pyramid cannot hold true. So you see that it is drawn an inverted pyramid, and the options are energy flow, biomass, number of individuals, standing, crop. So it can never happen for energy flow, inverted pyramid. So that's why I'm asking you to look at it and appreciate the differences from the NCRT. Done, everyone? Shall we move forward? So any doubt still here? Because I'm going to give you an exercise now based on everything that we have studied till now in this chapter only. All the concepts, standing crop, everything. And we have to, you will be doing an exercise. If you do this exercise successfully, this chapter is clear in your head and you will have no problem in questions that are going to come. So in class, we will do it right now. So shall we go for it? Everyone is ready? Yes,
Yes, sir.
no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let me open. So there must be a figure in your book talking about a diagrammatic representation of ecological succession. Can you people find that figure out? I'll also pull it out for you here. Just one moment. If someone figures it out, please tell me the page number. I'm figuring it out. It's on page number down. Yes, it's on 252. Can you see it, everyone? Can everyone see page number 252? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have a figure which says diagrammatic representation of primary succession. Can you see that? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you have to, second. Yes, yeah. So you have to go through this figure and you have to tell me, what do you understand? What do you infer in terms of at every stage, from stage A, which they have written as phytoplankton, till stage G, which is a forest? What do you understand? So I want an explanation from someone. What's happening here basically?
Shows the pyramid of numbers where each individual numbers is increasing and the biomass as well. So like with the increase in time and reproduction, so numbers increase, the dry weight of the trophic level increases, and
Perfect.
the
So
and
to begin with, there is no trophic level, right? Here, there is no traffic level to begin with, correct? You agree with me?
yes, sir.
So one thing that you are very you pointed it out very good is that with increasing stages from A to B, B to C, C to D, the additional trophic levels are also getting introduced now, right? There was just phytoplankton. Now there are red swamp stage. When animals, so it's all about plant. All I see in this picture is plant only the producers. Do we see any consumer in this picture?
No.
No. So it won't be appropriate to, yes, to include the increasing trophic level angle. Yes, you are right that when plants will be there, animals will come for sure, but that's not what is being represented from this figure. That's why I asked, look at it again and try to apply the concepts that you have studied. So your answer was almost correct. You are around the same thing, but can you pick the major theme which they are trying to show in this diagrammatic representation? Take a couple of minutes, no worries. You can start speaking whenever you are ready, anyone. Okay. So any changes to your statement, Alan? Because only you reached the closest. So
Yeah, so due to
could
the
you?
increase in, so yeah, it shows
Mhm,
the increase in numbers and biomass. So you can tell that the energy being consumed and being
mhm,
produced and being
mhm.
absorbed also increases, and therefore the energy for the topic level increases.
Correct. Yes, very good. Correct. But that's still, the secondary theme you have picked. You are correct that all your statements are correct. But just pay attention to A, B, and C, let's say. A, B, C, D. What's happening in these four stages? Because after that, what you say makes complete sense. Lots and lots of productions, lots of energy is there stored in this particular ecosystem. Perfect. But what's happening at A, B, C, D? A seems like barely there was nothing, right? There's just a pitfall with the water accumulated in it, correct?
Doesn't show the different stages of life.
Different different stages of, you're correct, different stages of
Stages of life.
life.
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. So at one stage there was nothing, correct? This is an example of primary succession. So primary means which is happening for the first time. There are two type of successions in nature. So that's the theme. Let's talk about it a little more. So primary succession is places where life was not there before. For example, you see a rock or a mountain where you do not see plants and animals growing, but after 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you see life takes over, nature takes over. We say that nature takes over everything. So for example, if I when we go to a office, a big office building, imagine any big office building made by humans. Okay, so it's not a jungle, it's all glass, concrete, everything very well maintained by humans. Now imagine if humans are extinct all of a sudden. Okay, or the subways or the overbridge, all these structures are not natural, right? So natural things don't grow on it. But if humans vanish from the planet, after 100 years, a untouched left architectural structure, a big building, you will see plants growing right there inside of it. Not just plant, fungus. You will also see animals living. It will become damp. That we call as nature takes over. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
That's what I'm talking about. So that's where life was not there and then it came. It's not a miracle or out of a blue thing that happens. It is called succession. And primary succession is when it happens for the first time. So write down ecological succession. Ecological succession. Okay. Write down. It is defined as the gradual and predictable change. Gradual and predictable change in the species composition. Species composition of any given region. Okay, so when I say gradual and predictable, by gradual I mean with respect to time. So it's very slow a change. Just like when nature takes over any unattended architecture made by human. Have you seen the pictures of these abandoned mansions or houses or bridges which is taken over by nature? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there's an example of primary succession. But sometimes what happens, secondary succession also happens. For example, a forest was there, so life was already there. And then majority or almost all life was lost in wildfires. So there was a jungle fire, everything burned down, animals burned, plant burned, and there is ash everywhere. So for some time, the life will not be there, right? But after that, you will see that again, plants, grasses will start sprouting up and growing and taking over. Yes, makes sense. That is secondary succession, like succeeding from the already existing primary life. Is that okay? So primary succession, let's write some points, write down. Primary succession starts in a region. Primary succession starts in a region where no living organism were there. Where no living organism were there. For example, a rock, for that matter, a rock newly created pond or water reservoir. So that is what you just saw and analyzed in that activity. Do you understand now, Alan? Do you understand, Alan? Okay. So bare rock, cooled lava, newly created pond or reservoir, or 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 abandoned structural architectures, or abandoned structural architectures. Is that clear, everyone? Now, the difference between primary and secondary succession is that primary succession is always very slow. Primary succession is very slow. And why is it slow? Because there was no life, right? There was no life to begin with. So new spores. And how does it come? It does not come out of, no one asked this question. So where does this life come from if there was no life to begin with? So it comes as spores, seeds, some birds, wind bring it there. And over time, if the conditions are favorable, like we need water for things to germinate, even for phytoplanktons, bacteria to survive and propagate and replicate. So if those conditions start accumulating over time, for example, in a leftover architectural building, over time, if no one takes care of it, 10 years, 20 years, it's abandoned, or a house in the middle of nowhere is abandoned. Over time, water leakage, rain, so there'll be no taking care of it. So woods will start absorbing water, percolation will happen from the roofs, and walls will start getting this leakage. Fungi will start developing because fungal spores are present everywhere. So will come your phytoplanktons, algae, bacteria, and they will give rise to new spores, new plants. It will attract new animals. They will bring new seeds, new plants, and so forth, so on. The growth will kick up. Okay. So primary succession is very slow as compared to a secondary succession. Is that clear, everyone? Am I audible, people? Okay. Now, another thing that you should remember and note, and is of importance, is that after succession, okay, so if it is a primary succession, you know that there will be some species that will grow there in large numbers, or that will dominate. Okay, so there is always some species which is known as pioneer species. Okay, so you can write down the species that start invading the bare region, okay, which is the lifeless region, are called as pioneer species. You must have heard this term, pioneers of something, right? Is that clear? And after some time, there is a equilibrium that is reached. Okay. So you write down the species or the community. The species or the community of organisms. It can be plant or animal. That reaches equilibrium. Equilibrium is known as stability. That reaches equilibrium with their environment. So after one point of time, they reach a number where they stay stable. Okay. And that community is known as climax community. So remember the pioneer community and the climax species or community. Is it clear, everyone? Does this make sense, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And when this succession happens in plants, so talking about plants, there are two things that can happen. Either based on the habitat, either there are wet regions, wetlands, or there are dry regions or dry lands, dry areas. Okay. So when succession of plant happens, in wet regions. Okay, in wet regions. So there the plants were living in too much of water condition. Okay, so when their succession happens, it's called hydarch, or sorry, hydrarch succession. The word hydra or hydro is associated with water. So hydrarch succession. Okay, because it's happening in wet plants. And the characteristic of this succession is that it goes from hydric conditions. Hydric conditions mean water surplus. You can write hydric conditions means water surplus conditions. There's lots of water. Hydric conditions to mesic conditions. Mesic means balanced, not too much of water, not too less of water. So this is case A. Case of case B, which happens in dry regions, when there's a plant succession, it's called xerarch succession. Hydrarch and xerarch succession. Okay, and the characteristic of this succession is that it goes from very dry, which is also known as xeric conditions, to mesic conditions. It's not opposite, just remember, understand what is the difference. Mesic condition simply means a balanced condition. So in hydrarch succession, hydric conditions become balanced. In xerarch conditions, xeric conditions become balanced. But balance is what both the successions want to achieve, and they achieve. So every succession wants to achieve balance. Does that make sure, or does that make sense, people? Yes, no? Please write this down and let me know when you're done. So after this, there is this one topic which is left, which is nutrient cycling in this chapter. And this we will start and finish in the next class. In the next class, this chapter will be over, and we will start with the 15th chapter, which is the penultimate chapter of your syllabus. And so we have a few minutes. If you have any questions. Yes, Minashi has a question, sir. Ecological succession and nutrient cycling is deleted. Oh, is it? But nutrient cycling, some questions from it might, one or two. So if you are okay with me discussing it, we can still discuss. Is it deleted from the boards, right, Minashi? CBSE boards. Yeah. But it's again, succession and nutrient cycling, some MCQs have been asked from there. So you should, I have no problem not discussing it, but I think we should just discuss it